How good is Gavin McKenna actually? And when you watch him, do you see the best prospect in hockey? Or do you think people are already getting a little too carried away? Gavin McKenna is at the stage where every game starts feeling a little too small for him. That usually happens right before a prospect becomes everybody's problem. The points get stupid. The clips get everywhere, the comparison names get bigger, and pretty soon you are no longer asking whether he is going first overall. You are asking what kind of first overall this is. Good prospect? Franchise prospect? Face of the league type? The sort of player teams lose on purpose for. That is where McKenna lives now. And before this turns into one of those draft videos where every teenager gets called generational by the fourth paragraph, it is worth slowing down a little. Connor McDavid was absurd. Sidney Crosby was on a different planet. Connor Bedard was nasty. Gavin McKenna is still a prospect. He has not played an NHL game yet. He has not had to deal with 82 games. NHL defensemen, travel, bad teams, hard matchups, or any of the stuff that turns talent into a career. Still, once the numbers pile up the way his have, you have to talk about it honestly. McKenna grew up in Whitehorse, Yukon, which already made him stand out before the scoring ever did. Hockey does not produce a lot of top-of-the-draft names from there. He came through Whitehorse Minor Hockey, then moved into the South Alberta Hockey Academy pipeline, and pretty much every step after that looked like somebody pressing fast forward on a normal development path. He was putting up huge totals before Major Junior ever got involved. And by the time he reached the Canada Winter Games in 2023, he was already doing the kind of stuff that makes people stop pretending they need more time to decide what they are looking at. He put up 27 points for Yukon in that tournament, 14 goals, 13 assists. That broke the event scoring record. He had one game with 9 points. That sort of thing sounds fake when it is attached to a real tournament, though that was part of the early McKenna experience. The numbers kept landing in places where they stopped sounding like normal youth hockey dominance and started sounding like a problem for the next level. Then he got to the WHL. And the next level did not really slow him down either. Medicine Hat took him first overall in the 2022 WHL Prospects Draft. That mattered on its own because he became the first Yukon-born player to go first in that draft. He also got exceptional player status from BC Hockey and Hockey Alberta, which told you how the people around him viewed the talent, even though the WHL itself did not grant him exceptional status to enter the league a year early. He still found his way there fast enough. In his affiliate games during 2022-23, he played 16 regular season games for the Tigers and put up 18 points, 4 goals, 14 assists. For a player that young, those are already strong numbers. More importantly, he did not look overwhelmed. That first full season in Major Junior was where the whole thing started sounding louder. In 2023-24, at 16, McKenna put up 97 points in 61 games for Medicine Hat, 34 goals, 63 assists. He led the Tigers in scoring, won WHL Rookie of the Year, then added CHL Rookie of the Year on top of that. There's a certain type of junior season where the numbers are good, but the point is mostly that a young player survived and flashed. This was not that. 97 points as a 16-year-old in the WHL changes the conversation right away. At that point, the question is not whether the player is elite for his age. The question is how high the whole thing can go. Then came the next season, and that is where the McDavid, Bedard, Crosby part of the conversation stopped feeling lazy. McKenna followed the 97-point rookie year by putting up 129 points in 56 games in 2024-25, 41 goals, 88 assists. He was named WHL Player of the Year. He was named CHL Player of the Year. He also had a 54-game point streak stretched across the season and playoffs, which tells you how long he was basically living inside the score sheet. Over his 2 full WHL seasons, he went from elite teenager to the clear center of the 2026 draft class. And once he got to that 129 in 56 line, the comparisons became unavoidable. Bedard, in his draft year, put up 143 points in 57 games. McDavid had 120 in 47. Crosby had 168 in 62. If you want the points per game version, Crosby sat at 2.71. McDavid was at 2.55. Bedard hit 2.51. McKenna came in around 2.3 in that 129-point season. So if you line them up strictly by raw junior destruction, he is behind those three. That matters, because people get a little carried away once the phrase "best prospect since" starts getting tossed around. Still, there is context. Crosby's year was one of the most ridiculous seasons junior hockey has ever seen. McDavid lost games to injury in his draft year and still cleared 120. Bedard was playing on a bad Regina team and still put up 143 and 57, while every arena already knew the puck was staying on his stick. McKenna's numbers sit a notch below those names in the most obvious statistical comparison, though a notch below Crosby, McDavid, and Bedard is still not exactly a criticism. It's the sort of thing that still leaves you sitting at the top of a draft class with everybody else looking up. What helps McKenna in those conversations is that he does not live on one trait. He's not only a shooter, he's not only a hands guy, he's not only a transition guy padding numbers off rush chances. The assist totals matter because they tell you the offense is not just flowing through him, he is shaping it. 88 assists in 56 games is not the profile of a kid waiting on the weak side for one-timers. That is somebody driving the game, seeing the whole sheet, and picking apart coverage before defenders are set. When people talk about him as a winger who thinks like a center, that's what they mean. The international stuff made the same point. At the 2024 Under-18 World Championship, he put up 20 points in 7 games for Canada, splitting it cleanly with 10 goals and 10 assists. That's one of those lines you usually only see from tournament MVPs, and that's basically what he looked like. He set a Canadian record for points in a single U18 tournament and closed the event with a hat trick and 4 points in the gold medal game. Before that same summer ended, he added 6 points in 5 games at the Hlinka Gretzky Cup and left with another gold medal. Then came the World Juniors, which gave a better picture of how young he still was. In the 2025 tournament, McKenna had 1 goal in 5 games as Canada got knocked out in the quarterfinals. That is not a disaster. It's also not a line that jumps off the page. A lot of star prospects have 1 quiet World Juniors before they come back bigger the next time. That is pretty much what happened here. McKenna returned for the 2026 tournament and finished with 14 points in 7 games, 4 goals and 10 assists, as Canada won bronze. He was one of the most productive players in the whole event, and by then, the gap between junior stardom and international impact had basically disappeared. Then he made another move that changed the shape of the story. Instead of staying in Major Junior for 1 more season, McKenna went to Penn State. That mattered because it landed right in the middle of the new CHL to NCAA reality, where top Canadian Major Junior players suddenly had a second route to the draft. He got to college as an 18-year-old freshman with more hype on him than any Penn State hockey player had probably ever carried into the building, and the risk was obvious. College can slow things down. Older players, older defenders, less space, fewer games, more structure. If you're trying to protect a draft stock, that jump is not nothing. He handled it fine, actually better than fine. In 2025-26, McKenna put up 51 points in 35 games at Penn State, 15 goals, 36 assists. He won the Big Ten scoring title, set Penn State's single-season assists record, set the freshman record for both points and assists, and became only the 3rd player in program history to hit 50 points in a season. He also had an 8-point game against Ohio State with 7 assists, which broke school and conference records and turned one random February night into the sort of stat line people screenshot for years. That season mattered because it answered a different question than the WHL years did. Major Junior had already shown he could bully his age group. College showed he could step into an older league and still bend it around himself. That is a different kind of confirmation. It's part of why the draft story around him is no longer just probably going first. At this point, the conversation is more about how securely he owns that spot and what kind of team is lucky enough, or bad enough, to get him. That leads to the real question. How good is he actually? Right now, the safest version of this, he looks like the clear best player in the 2026 draft class, the favorite to go first overall, and one of the strongest forward prospects of the last several years. That already says a lot. It also leaves room between him and the giant labels people throw around when they get excited. The more interesting version is what his game suggests beyond the numbers. McKenna is a left shot winger listed around 6 feet and 170 pounds, so he's not the massive power forward type who can lean on defenders works just by existing. His game works because of the processing speed. He sees plays 2 touches ahead. He creates through delay, through angle changes, through timing, and through passing that opens up space for the next attack instead of just collecting an apple on the final touch. He can score, clearly. Though the full package is why teams get pulled in. He looks like a line driver, not just a finisher. That is why the comparisons get messy. If you compare him to Bedard was a more violent scorer at the same stage. The shot was the headline. If you compare him to McDavid's speed and pace pressure were on another level even before the NHL. If you compare him to Crosby had the broadest, ugliest kind of junior dominance where everything turned into points and every defense looked late. McKenna does not beat all 3 of those guys in a straight prospect argument. That does not mean he falls into the next bland tier either. He has done enough that the better question is probably not, is he on their level exactly? The better question is whether he belongs in the smaller group right behind those names. The group where teams stop thinking about positions and start thinking about franchise timelines. Because that is what the draft is really about for him now. He is the player that changes a room the second the card gets turned in. He's the player fans talk themselves into before he even signs. He's the player the lottery winner will sell all summer, and the lead up to the draft is going to be filled with the same handful of storylines for a reason. Before we close this one out, subscribe to Beyond the Bench, like the video, and drop your thoughts in the comments. How good do you think Gavin McKenna actually is? And do you see him as the best prospect since McDavid, Bedard, or Crosby? So, can he stay clearly ahead of the rest of the class? Maybe. Did the Penn State jump help or hurt him? Has he done enough against enough levels to lock up the top pick? Pretty close. And then the biggest one. Are we looking at another true franchise-changing forward? Or are people getting too carried away because junior hockey always makes the next guy look bigger than he is? That one only gets answered later. Still, if you're judging the prospect and not trying to predict the full career from 2 years of junior and 1 year of college, the answer is pretty strong already. Gavin McKenna is not just really good for his age. He's the kind of player who has forced every level to adjust to him quickly. He has scored in Whitehorse, in prep, in the WHL, for Canada, and in college. He has led leagues, broken records, and stayed right on schedule every time the competition got older and harder. That is usually what the real ones do before the NHL ever gets them.